Hello, this is Storybooks channel. New videos are posted every day. Subscribe and click the bell.
So what are you gonna do now? Asked Kelly at Jenna's graduation. You know I want to be a stewardess. Calmly replied the girl to her teacher. It was just as she had hoped. It was her last day at the orphanage. Jenna was not lucky. She had spent her whole life in that place. Her mother was a village girl. She was raised in the village by her grandfather Michael. That was Jenna's mother's name. She fell in love with a guy, but as it turned out, he was later married. When they broke up, the girl found out that she was pregnant. Despite the fact that she was completely alone, Michael still decided to keep the baby. Her grandfather did not allow her to return to the village in shame, so she stayed in the city. But as it turned out later, the girl was to give birth to twins, 2 girls. The labor was difficult because one child was lying wrong. Maria started having complications. Serious lacerations were added to it, and bleeding started. As Jenna Kelly said, one baby suffocated and her mother died from not being able to stop the bleeding. At first, the girl hoped to find her great-grandfather, and after graduating from the orphanage, she immediately pursued it. But she was told that Michael had long since died. So Jenna was left completely alone. In fact, the girl was just happy when she was finally able to leave the orphanage. There she never liked the love for them from the caretakers and teachers they never felt. Jenna was constantly being bored. So when she opened the door to her own apartment, which the girl got, she felt the happiest. She didn't have any friends. Over the years, she had gotten used to being alone and didn't really need company. All these years, she had dreamed of heaven. If she had been a boy, she would have definitely become a pilot. But since she was destined to be born a girl, working as a stewardess was something that would help her realize her dream. Yes, the conditions here, of course, are not very good, sighed the girl, seeing the peeling wallpaper in the apartment, which was allocated to her by the state. But at least there is a stove, a bed, a table, and a chair. So it's not so bad. Jenna put in an old closet her few belongings and moved into the apartment. But as they say, happy housewarming. She took a bite of her brownie and drank her tea. I hope I made friends with my new place. The next day, the girl went to the district center to get a referral for free training. This had already been arranged a month before her graduation from the orphanage. The referral was to the Utah Civil Aviation College. It was quite far from Jenna's home. But the girl realized that if she became a stewardess, she would not be here very often. On the basis of the school were formed short-term courses lasting from 2 to 6 months. Jenna wanted to take a 6-month course to become a real professional. The girl was not only determined, but also pragmatic. She was well aware that she could not expect help from anywhere, and that she would have to achieve everything in life herself. A month later, Jenna received a referral and money for training. She was very worried because even during her stay in the orphanage, they were not often taken out into the city. The orphanage was located in a small village 10 kilometers from the nearest town. To Jenna, the city seemed like a giant. For a month, the girl looked with interest at Fort Collins, where they had once visited with the class. There was a cathedral and many old mansions. Not to say that Jenna was attracted to all sorts of historical events and cultural monuments, but she wanted to have an idea of where she would have to live now. There were so many impressions that the girl couldn't fit them in her head. I didn't remember anything again with annoyance, she said. Not in what year it was built, not by them on the children of this merchant. This way I have to focus more on the details. And how am I going to pass my exam to become a flight attendant before the impressions of the city had settled, before she had to go to Utah? The latter looked like a real giant compared to Fort Collins. God, how not to get lost here, the girl pronounced as she stepped off the shuttle bus. From Fort Collins to Utah was about 700 kilometers. And Jenna spent all the time near the window, looking at the towns and villages running past her. The city really was huge. At first, Jenna was very scared and wanted to give up and go home. But then she pulled herself together, called a cab, and went to the school. Jenna. The old woman looked at her through her glasses. Yes, she answered briefly. I'm on a referral from the administration at Fort Collins. You got a call last week? Yes, I remember. Come on in. The secretary offered and led the girl into an office. Please fill out all the paperwork. After checking, I will give you a certificate for a place in the dormitory and tell you where you need to come. The girl spent about 3 hours in the office. Finally, all formalities were settled, and she took a cab and went to the hostel. We do not smoke and do not drink, strictly pronounced the commandant. It is forbidden to bring boys into the room. Be home no later than 10 after the dormitory closes, and you will spend the night on the street. We have all girls' rooms, so you'll have someone else living with you. Who will it be? I don't know yet. Maybe a girl like you, or maybe one of the students. Jenna nodded in agreement and took the keys. The girl went up to the 3rd floor, opened the door to her room. It didn't bother her that she wouldn't be alone in the orphanage for the duration of her studies. She was used to it. Jenna was not noted for her chatty network, but she didn't let others talk all the time either. She really didn't want to stay in her room, and she needed to get used to the city. It wasn't that far to the school, but I still had to learn how to get there on foot. Excuse me, how do I get to the school? She asked a young man on the way. You need to go 2 more streets and turn left on the 3rd one. There you will see it, answered the passerby, showing the direction with his hand. Jenna reached the college, found her building, and approached the desired classroom. Well, I think I'm done with that, she said to herself and went outside. Well, now we can go for a walk. The girl asked how she could get to the city center, took a bus, and watched carefully what was happening. It was Friday outside the window, and the girl decided to spend the entire weekend exploring Utah. She got back late that day, but despite her tiredness, she was happy. She couldn't wait to start her studies. There were many historical monuments in the city, but these did not interest her. She found the mountains attractive, but what struck her most was the wind organ. It was windy on Sunday, and Jenna could even hear it making sounds and really singing. She laughed. Its construction is strange, of course, but it's a full-fledged musical instrument. For the first week Jenna lived alone, no one was assigned to her. In fact, the girl was even glad of it. There was a lot of information on the course, and it all had to be learned. The big problem for Jenna was foreign language. She didn't want to fly abroad, but a foreign language was a basic requirement. So now she had to study it nightly. There were 12 girls in her course, ranging in age from 18 to 25. Mostly everyone was from the city. Only Jenna and Daria were from the countryside. Even though the girl had lived in Fort Collins for 3 months, she didn't consider herself a city girl yet. So Airbus has a wider cabin than Boeing, Airbus. The nose is round, Boeing's is pointy. The speed of the flight tried Jenna to feel the difference between the different passenger boards. This week, the students had been given so much information that their heads were a mess. God, how am I going to memorize all this? She said with frustration in her voice. Suddenly, someone knocked on the door. Jenna opened it hesitantly. Hi. A girl came into the room excitedly. Barely caught the bus. They wouldn't let me off work for a week, even though I told them a month in advance they'd be on the phone. Stranger you will also study to be a stewardess, said Jenna, surprised. She nodded and went to get her bags. Let's eat, she said begrudgingly. I haven't eaten all day today. I thought I'd at least buy a pie at some bus station. And the driver was late today, so we raced on all sails. The girl took some bags and jars out of her bag and quickly set the table. Have you walked a lot in a week? I haven't. She shoved a sausage sandwich into her mouth. My memory's bad enough as it is, and I've missed a whole week. But that's okay. It's good that the two of us can help each other. They talked all evening. And just as they were going to bed, the girl realized that I forgot to ask for your name. My name is Sophia, Jenna, the girl said. I already thought that you do not want to tell me your name. She laughed. No, you don't. The neighbor burst out laughing. I'm just so chatty that as soon as I open my mouth to talk about anything, so I have one thought interrupts another. In general, I want to warn you that with me you will not miss. Yawned the girl and pressing the pillow with her hands, turned away from the wall. That's it, let's go to sleep. Good night. For Jenna, it was a completely new experience socializing at the orphanage. The children were not very friendly because of fear and trauma. It was very difficult to make friends with anyone. So the children mostly either played alone or looked for quiet company. It wasn't until high school that anyone started being friends or falling in love with each other. But Jenna always kept to herself. The other kids were hard for her to get along with. "Jenna, come on, get up." The voice woke her up the next morning. "You're gonna get me up to speed, or I'm gonna sit here smiling like a dummy." "Yes, we mostly just with airplanes. What ships? Their construction differences." Barely opened her eyes, replied the girl. "Yes, and also a foreign language." "How much I don't like it." "Me and Sophia is all I know." The neighbor laughed. "Well, we'll learn it together." Despite all the fussiness and talkativeness, Sophia turned out to be a kind and cheerful girl. She was from an urban settlement. Sophia was 22. She had been working in a kindergarten for many years as an assistant teacher. "You know how bored I am with children," she complained. "And the salary is small. So now I regret that after school I didn't go anywhere. I would have had a specialty by now." "Why did you decide to become a stewardess?" Jenna asked her with interest. "Honestly, I'm scared of heights," she sighed. "But the pay is good here, and you can meet someone." "Very well. You know, I'm sick of these drunks back home." Sophia was perfect for the profession. She was tall and slender. She had big brown eyes and long hair. Jenna was even shorter and, you could say, was not as good looking. But by all outward parameters, she also passed. "You think you can meet someone on an airplane?" Jenna asked, surprised. Her neighbor winked at her. "They're in business class. You know what kind of solid men fly." "I read some real stories about how two stewardesses so found their happiness. And I heard more and more about tragic accidents," sighed the girl. "Something didn't work, something broke, or the plane didn't make it. Scary, of course." "But yes," Sophia said sadly, "but you and I will be optimistic." The girls had been studying together for more than 2 months. The city girls were bitches. They didn't like country girls, and they had more opportunities to go to beauty parlors. Sophia and Jenna tried to save money on everything. "Yeah, screw them. Don't worry about it." "Sophia, don't worry about them. You and I are going to work together after graduation. So let them choke on their arrogance." The theoretical part was over, and the hours, days of weeks, and months of practical work began. It was the beginning of March, and there was a little more than a month left until the end of the training. Then the exam awaited them. "Jenna, let's go out," Sophia suggested. "I have a headache from all this already. Every day there's something we have to study. Let's go to a cafe. We'll go for hours. I'm saving money now." The girl blushed. "I need to buy clothes for spring. Let's go at my expense." I finally transferred the settlement. I was glad to go home and order a pizza and some juice. "We're not going to be too fancy. We got to see some of the boys around here too." "Here we go," Jenna sighed. Spring had sprung, and she was having a relapse. "Girlfriend, you're 19 already." The girl laughed. "It's time to start your adult life." "No, thank you," she protested. "Jenna, I don't need that kind of adventure. I'll do it on my own." "All right, let's go." Her friend took her under her arm. "I promise we won't hit on anyone. But if something good comes along, then we'll see." As it turned out, Sophia had been dating a guy for years. They'd been friends for over 5 years and were getting married. At first, everything was fine, but then her Slavic started drinking. At first a little, and over time more and more. The girl realized that if she stayed at home, she could not leave him. So Sophia decided to break up with him once and for all. Sometimes Jenna could hear her friend sobbing at night. After all these years of separation, it wasn't easy for her. "Jenna, he won't change," she once told her. "I've tried everything I can to make it permanent. Do you know how much it hurts to realize there's nothing you can do? I loved him and I was crazy about him. At first I hoped my love would save him, but eventually I realized that nothing would change him. I don't even know what to tell you," Jenna sighed. "I haven't had that experience. Yeah, I don't really know people at all. I've been cooped up for 18 years. So I'm really scared to get involved with guys. My mom was abandoned and she died. She had no one but her grandfather. And he disowned her when he found out my mom was pregnant. You know, Jenna, I still hope for the best." Her friend encouraged her. "Sure, it hurts what I've been through. But that shouldn't stop me from being happy." The girls got dressed and went to the cafe. It was crowded today, with people looking at them with interest. "Let me buy you a drink," suddenly some man said. The girls looked at him carefully. Jenna was silent. Sophia looked at the stranger once more and answered him. "But if you only have friendly intentions, why not?" she smiled. "I assure you, only with friendly intentions." He laughed. "There are other places for romance in Utah. Do you go to those places often?" Sophia asked the man forehead to forehead. "I've been once, and it was enough for me for a long time." The stranger said calmly, "You must not be from around here." "Well, not that I am. I'm from Utah, and my friend is in Fort Collins." The girl replied businesslike. "What can I get you?" he asked. "Take this from me as a token of the beginning of our friendship." The girls looked at each other and were silent for a while. "All right, so be it," Sophia finally answered. "Let's have pizza." Italians can certainly be friends. The man went to the cash register himself and brought a huge pizza and a carafe of orange juice. His cell phone suddenly rang. "Substitute for Eura today. No mood," he said. All right. I'll be there soon." "Dear girls, please forgive me, but I have to leave urgently," with annoyance in his voice, said the man. "Unfortunately, I must now replace my colleague. He is ill. Don't worry, I've already paid for everything. Enjoy your meal." "Wait," Sophia shouted after him. "What's your name at least? We want to say thank you." But the stranger didn't hear her. He quickly ran outside, got into a car, and drove away. "Everything started out so well, and Sophia complained about you. Nice men." "Jenna, what do you think of him?" "I don't care." The girl answered calmly. "You know thy guys are not." "Conscience. Although you should," her friend said sternly. "You go ahead and look around, start." The girls had a lot of pizza. They even took half of it home. The friendship pizza was really huge. "I wouldn't mind meeting him again," Sophia said dreamily. "He's got something for me." "Let's go to that cafe again," she suggested. Maybe he was there all the time. The girls went to the pizzeria a few more times, but they never saw the man again. "Too bad," Sophia said through her tears. "Maybe he's my destiny, and I don't even know his name." "What about the man from business class?" Jenna laughed. "Don't you like them already?" "When she falls in love with someone, then you'll see," she said resentfully. "I want to see our stranger." The training was coming to an end, and the girls were to have their first training flight. Sophia asked that she and Jenna be put together. They nervously tugged on their uniforms, waiting to be called. "Sophia." "Jenna, I will now introduce you to the pilot and flight attendant," said the instructor. "You'll be flying to New York and back today. It won't be a long flight." The girls looked stunning in their uniforms, especially Sophia. Her long hair was gathered into a spectacular ponytail. Sophia's big brown eyes were like huge pearls. In her face, both girls were trembling with fear. "Jenna, if I suddenly faint from fear, then give me my pills from my bag," Sophia asked her friend. "You know, Sophia, I'm not even sure which of us will faint first." Jenna laughed. A flight attendant came out of the airplane down the ramp. She greeted the students and led them off. "Let's meet the pilots first, and then I'll show you around." Mark. First pilot James, second pilot. "Guys, meet our students Sophia and Jenna." The girls couldn't believe their eyes. Sure, there are all kinds of coincidences in life, but not like this. "God, it's that man from the cafe in shock," whispered Sophia in her friend's ear. "He's a pilot." Mark winked at the girl and smiled. Sophia blushed at first, but in fact, she was just happy. The first flight was not easy for the girls. Sophia tried not to think about the height, but she was still confused. "Nothing, you'll get used to it." The flight attendant encouraged her. "Have a drink, you'll calm down." The girls tried to pretend that they were real professionals. They approached the passengers, answered their questions, and helped them if necessary. "Well, girls," Mark approached them. "When they landed in New York, you guys did great. You did a high five." "You think so?" Sophia said with pale lips. "Jesus, how am I going to work? I feel nauseous all the time. A lot of people feel like that the first time." He answered calmly. "And then the body gets used to it, and everything goes well." The man looked intently at the girl and left the airplane. The students came to their senses a little and also went overboard conductor. "The main thing is to believe in yourself," she taught the girls. In fact, airplanes very rarely crash. Even if something breaks, there are always some emergency safety mechanisms. We landed at a technical airport once with a problem tank. The main problem is human error. And it works for you as well as them. I mean passengers. There are tantrums. I was offered New York, but I stayed here. I like Utah better. And you're home almost every day. I tried New York once for internationals, but it just wasn't my thing. So if I can't be tempted to the capital, we're recruiting girls right now. That would be great. Sophia was happy. We have to pass the exam. There is nothing difficult there, laughed the flight attendant. The main thing is to organize everything in your head. Mostly we just get confused. The girls sighed. They decided to take a little walk around New York. They had 5 hours before their flight back. Jenna, where shall we go to the Red Square? Asked her friend. But I don't really want to go there, she answered. There will probably be a lot of people there now. We're already stressed out. Let's go somewhere quieter. All right, we'll go from the airport to the nearest subway. And then we'll see, said the girl. Then let's go. We don't have much time. We'll walk around a bit, Jenna suggested. The weather was nice. It was already about 11 o'clock. The girls were a little distracted, and in a great mood they were going back to the airport. Back they flew more discreetly. Sophia tuned in, and she managed the whole flight not to think about the altitude, not about the fact that she might get nauseous. It was safe to say that their first flight was a success. After they returned to Utah, the chief pilot approached them. Well, I congratulate you. The flight was a success, even too, Mark said. We don't really encourage friendly relations between stewardesses and pilots here, so I suggest we meet tomorrow night in the cafeteria and finally have a pizza for our friendship. The girls agreed. Jenna saw Sophia's eyes burning and she wanted to support her friend. On the one hand, I'm glad he turned out to be a pilot, Sophia sighed. On the other hand, I wish he was a normal person. Is he not a normal person? Jenna laughed. I think Mark is pretty normal. But that's not what I meant, she said. It's just that if he and I were to have a serious relationship, it wouldn't be good for the family. We'd both be in the sky all the time. And if we're on different airplanes, we'll rarely see each other at all. The next day, the girls went to the cafe happy. This time they sat down very well, all three of them. Mark told them stories from his life, shared his experiences. Mark, why a pilot? Unexpectedly, Sophia asked, is it love for the sky or something else? Both, the man laughed. For as long as I can remember, I have always wanted to fly. The biggest problem for me was getting into a flying school. When I was young, I was not in good health. I still don't even know how I managed to pass the competition. They took me in just in case. But when I started flying, it was like I grew wings. I started moving fast in my hands. I even gained a little weight because I was skinny as a skeleton all my youth. So the sky had a good effect on me. And the other reason is my father. He always thought I was worthless. Partly because of my health, partly because I didn't like sports or politics. My father was a professional boxer for many years. And ironically, he had such a weak son. He used to call me squishy, so I just wanted to prove to him what I could do. How did he take it? Sophia asked with interest. He was pleased. He wasn't, Mark said with annoyance in his voice. He wasn't convinced by my profession. He'd always been more attracted to my older brother than to me. My mom mostly talks to me. My father, you might say, not at all. Yes, it's a sad story, Jenna sighed. For us who came out of boarding school, it always seemed that if only we had a mother or a father, we would have a perfect relationship with our parents. I sometimes think I was lucky. Even though I don't have either of my parents, I watched in the orphanage as the kids met their father or mother and hoped they might be taken away. But the biggest horror for them was when their parent or parents took them away and then brought them back. The children would come back with very deep traumas. I don't know how they went on with their lives after that at all. Their biggest dream was shattered. Life is complicated. The man supported her. Sometimes everything seems to be going well, but in reality it ends badly. And then, when it ends badly, you look, and it's really nothing. They sat for a long time that evening. Tomorrow was the pilot's day off, but the girls had 2 weeks left before their exams at the school, and despite their fatigue, They had to think about their studies first. I hope to see you again. The man said goodbye to them. Don't worry about the exam. Everything will be fine. Thank you. Jenna and Sophia replied in one voice. Let's hope so. The girls quickly ran into the dormitory. It was already 9:55. Thank God we made it. Sophia laughed. Otherwise, we would have had to spend the night at Mark's. I see you wouldn't mind. Jenna teased her friend. I'd be all for it. She sighed dreamily. Do you think he might like me? But judging by the way he's been eyeing you, I think he would. Her friend looked at her. You're probably lying to me, aren't you? You just don't want me to be upset. Jenna Sophia didn't believe me. Why do you think he should invite us to the cafe? Answered the girl. He has nothing else to do. You can see what he's doing. It's not because of me. I wish it was. Sophia grabbed a pillow and fell on the bed. Jenna, I think I'm in love with him. But we haven't even passed the exam yet, and you've already found your happiness. Jenna laughed. So you can quit school now. But no. How many of my nerve cells have I wasted for this? Protested her friend. Let me fly for a few years. Okay, lover, let's go to sleep, said the girl. We have to get up early tomorrow. Time flew by very quickly. Jenna was Sophia. They went on several more flights and on other airplanes. The last time the girls didn't even notice how their flight flew by. There were 2 days left before their exams. Jesus, Jenna, I need to be sedated. I'm so nervous. Nervous Sophia. What if I can't do it? What if I can't do it? Why not? I tried to bring my friend to her senses. Girl, you'll be fine. I'll be fine too. Let's not get too excited. Sophia tried to hold on, but she couldn't convince herself. Sav, you're driving yourself to a nervous breakdown like that. Scolded her. Jenna, come here, let's drink tea. After wine tea, the girl calmed down a little, but on the morning of exam day, she started shaking again. Sophia's voice was shaking, and she couldn't utter a word. Sophia. Even if you lose your voice because of nervousness, it's okay. We'll still take the test on the computer. Her friend reassured her. The main thing is to tune in. When you concentrate, you never have any problems. Ew, sighed the girl deeply. I'm probably going to die today. How scared am I? You have no idea. All right, calm down. Jenna took her hand. Come on, let's go. The teacher announced the start of the exam, and the test began. Jenna glanced at her friend. She was nervous at first and slumped in her chair, but after a few minutes she pulled herself together and got things going. Jenna, I think I was wrong in 2 places, Sophia said through her tears. Let's not panic, Jenna said sternly. We have to wait for the results. Everything will be fine. A few days later, the exam results came out. Both Sophia and Jenna passed. The girls were given certificates and offered jobs. Several people from the course failed the exam. 3 of them changed their minds during the course and left the course. The remaining almost 10 people did not want to stay at home. Many dreamed of working on international flights. Jenna and Sophia asked to work together and were allowed. One bad thing, they were put on a different airplane. They hardly ever crossed paths with Mark at work. After a month, the man found them. What's up, girls? It should be celebrated, cheerfully, he suggested. It's a pity, of course, that you're not on my plane, but that's no problem. Just keep in mind that you may be transferred to different planes. Many of them have only 1 flight attendant. I wouldn't want to work with just one, Sophia sighed. I've passed the commission, of course, but it would still be difficult to work alone. They spent a nice evening in their cafe, and this time Mark not only accompanied them home, but also asked Sophia to walk with him a little more. The airport had allocated the girls a studio apartment for 2, since there was no way to drive home. Jenna was very happy for her friend. Mark seemed to her a serious man, and Sophia could be behind him like a stone wall. Let's go for a walk in the park, the man suggested to the girl. But you're like happy, you know? Very much, she answered. Months ago, I could not dream that my life would change so dramatically. And now I'm a stewardess. I can't even believe it myself yet. It's okay. You'll get used to it in no time. He encouraged her. Don't think about the bad things. One bad thing, Sophia sighed. How to start a family? Yes, that's a real problem. Mark answered sadly. I've been through it all myself. Your wife was a stewardess." The girl asked in surprise. "No," replied the man. "It's just that I kept flying and flying, and you might say, floundering. She had an affair on the side. Then we had already lived together for 5 years. And how did you find out about it?" Sophia asked. "Did she tell you about it herself?" "No, it was like a movie," he laughed nervously. "My flight was canceled and I came home early. And there you know, Mark, what was it all for?" Sophia asked, annoyed. "Why live at all if there is no love? I've never understood it, and I never will." "I don't know," Mark sighed. "Maybe in such cases husbands and wives are left just in case." "That's exactly a reserve airfield," said the girl. "Only from this everyone has big problems later." "So what? Did your ex-wife find her happiness?" "I do not know." Indifferently, he replied. "She tried to come back to me 3 times, but I don't eat her." "Why?" "I'm not 80 years old, and this woman is not the last opportunity of my life. I'm only 32, and I still have my whole life ahead of me." He laughed. "Why haven't you gotten married yet?" Unexpectedly, Mark asked. "I'm sure you had a lot of admirers at home." "Maybe you are right," Sophia replied. "But I wasn't interested in them. I tried for years to save one man." "Yes, it didn't work. As long as there was hope to live with him, there was still a point. But as soon as I realized he wouldn't stop drinking, I took off. So you had a negative experience too." He said it quietly. "Maybe it's for the best. If you and I had both had good experiences, we might never have met." "That's right," the girl laughed and looked the man in the eye. "Then we wouldn't have even looked at each other." 7 months later, Mark and Sophia got married. The girl, after the wedding, came to get her things scoop. "How will I be alone now without you?" I burst into tears, Jenna. "I've gotten so used to you. You are my best friend. And you're my closest person." Jenna hugged her friend. "And you'll find your happiness." "I realized I'm a family man. I want kids." Sophia. "But what about airplanes?" Jenna asked in surprise. "Are you going to quit flying?" Jenna, "I'm under contract for 3 years now. And then I'll have a baby," she replied. "And Mark wants a baby." The man has seen all the vicissitudes of fate over the years. Stewardesses showed only the outer side of their profession, but most of them were without children and without a family. And all of them, without exception, suffered from this. While the girls were still young, they paid no attention to it. But as soon as they passed over 30, many began to suffer from loneliness, and because of the harmfulness of the profession, some became infertile. I decided 3 years of flying is enough for me, and then I need to start a full-fledged family, said Sophia. And Mark wants to leave after 45. He'll work till retirement, and then we'll see. You know, you're good, finally said Jenna. I'm very happy for you. Deep down, I want a family myself. Of course, it's too early for me to think about it. But I don't think I'll give all my youth to the sky. Maybe I'll work till I'm 30. If I don't meet anyone before then, maybe because I'm an orphan. But I really want kids. It's okay. The time will come and you'll meet your man. Sophia hugged her friend. You and I still have more than 2 years. So we're not flying together yet. After Sophia moved out, Jenna felt very sad again. For the first month, she even cried at night. In fact, she had no one but Sophia. She wasn't going back to Fort Collins. She wanted to sell her apartment and buy something of her own in Utah. What was it all for? Cried Jenna. No relatives, no family, no one I have. Sophia was like a big sister and kind of a mother to me. And now I'm without her. Of course, the girl often visited Mark and Sophia. They met at work all the time. But when she went to bed, she felt a very strong loneliness and oppressive longing. Jenna, why don't you take a foreign language course and go on international flights? A friend once suggested it. That way you could see the world. I'm having trouble with foreign languages, Jenna sighed. It takes so long to get there that I'm just afraid. They'll put me on some Asia, and it'll take a long time. I'm so used to it that you and I hardly ever fly more than 3 hours. So, did your friend say that? Girls get used to it. You'll get used to it. Just by that time, you will have a solid number of hours. And you'll learn foreign language with a tutor. How many of them are there now? Oh, I don't even know. Jenna sighed. My life has changed dramatically. You could say I went from orphanage to airplane. And now you want me to be a fish out of water abroad. I'm scared of all this. Why don't you study foreign languages? And then you'll see if you succeed, you succeed. If it doesn't, it won't, her friend reassured her. Time flew by quickly, and Sophia got pregnant a month before the end of her contract. Naturally, flying was out of the question. Jenna was happy with the news. But inside she knew that she would have to live her life differently now. Sophia was leaving in a few weeks. How can I be without you? The girl sobbed. I can't do it without you as I enter the airplane and you are not there. I'd go crazy. Jenna, but I'm not going anywhere from your life, soothed her friend. Besides, we'd like you to be godmother to our baby now. The girl burst into tears on her friend's shoulder. She realized that it would be very hard for her without Sophia. Finally, Jenna made up her mind and applied for a flight attendant for international flights. If they don't take me, they won't take me, she said. I have nothing to lose anyway. But what was her surprise when Jenna got a call from a flight firm? They were offering her flights to Europe. The girl was quite apprehensive. Even though she had improved her foreign language, she still thought she spoke poorly. She was invited for an interview. Jenna was on a flight to New York. The girl was shaking like an aspen leaf in the wind. The interview was conducted in several stages. One of them was conducted entirely in a foreign language. Jenna did not even remember what she was talking about. But a week later, she received a reply. The email said she had passed all the standards and had been accepted for Germany and France. No way, Jenna couldn't believe her eyes. There must be some kind of mistake. What kind of mistake, Jenna? Her friend laughed at her. You're an international flight attendant now. I'm so happy for you, honey. The girl cried all the time. She thought it couldn't be. A few weeks later, she was expected in New York to sign a contract. The hotel is booked by the flight company itself. You will always stay in the same place. Your rooms will be all-inclusive, so you don't have to worry about your meals. We booked double rooms for pilots and flight attendants, told the official information by a staff member. The girls explained the requirements that the company had. She agreed to them and signed a 3-year contract. Jenna's first flight seemed difficult. She had to speak in a foreign language all the time, and she wasn't used to it yet. And the passengers were very different from those she had flown with when she was working in Utah. She had a lot of impressions the first time around. Sophia, would you have seen our hotel in Hanover? It would have been deluxe. Couldn't contain her emotions. Jenna, the food is amazing. Oh, those German sausages. And how good are their buns? And the chocolate? You can get real Belgian chocolate here. There, and you were afraid? My friend laughed. Jenna, am I happy for you? I'm glad you took the risk. I'm so happy right now, she said. It's such a big contrast that I think I've never flown before, and we were transporting cargo, not people. The difference is enormous. Did they put you all over Europe? Sophia asked. For the first 2 weeks, only Germany and France, then the whole Europe. And then they said, we'll see. And France where? Paris, with undisguised interest, asked her friend. Yes, Charles de Gaulle Airport. Worried Jenna. Sophia, imagine, I will see Paris, but you do not die there, laughed her friend. Don't follow the old Soviet ways. I'm just starting to have fun, replied the girl. I want to see everything now. I told you the main thing here is to start. Now her salary allowed her to do that, and Jenna had a professional teacher. Her speaking skills were simply top-notch. Do you need help? She spoke easily to the elderly passenger in a foreign language. You know, I don't feel very well. Could you bring me some water? The German woman said politely. Maybe a lemon would make you feel better? The stewardess smiled, the passenger replied, and showed her snow-white teeth. Jenna tirelessly responded to passengers' requests and answered their questions. We are all so different. As she said to the senior flight attendant, you can see the Germans right away. They sit quietly and read something. They ask questions once in a while. That's the beauty of Jenna's international flights. She smiled. Here a drunk will not get on the plane to you, or there will be a scandal. How do I like my job? Laughed the girl. Oh, Jenna, I wish I was your age, said Cindy. I've read so much I don't want to. I've been to almost all developed countries. I've traveled everywhere, but I'm already tired. Senior flight attendant Cindy turned out to be a strict but unobtrusive woman. She did not pry into her soul. Jenna did not ask unnecessary questions. All their conversations were mostly related to work, and the pilots didn't bother her. Jenna, of course, heard many different stories about romances between pilots and stewardesses, but she was lucky enough to be spared. Although the girl from the very beginning noticed how the senior pilot looked at Svetlana, but she immediately decided that it was none of her business. After 3 months, Jenna was sent to Scandinavia for the first time, and the girl visited Oslo, Norway. After France and Germany, she felt a very strong contrast. Not that she didn't like the Scandinavian countries at all, but a bit of traveling. The girl realized that her heart belonged to the south of France. She simply adored Tanya. Here she loved everything, and Toulouse and Clarkson and Montpellier and Lourdes. Jenna had traveled to all the cities in this region of France. It even seemed to the girl that tourists underestimate the beauty of these fabulous places. What stunning scenery is here! She rejoiced like a child when she got to Italy. It has everything, and the sea and mountains and plains. If someone asked me where I would like to live, I would say without hesitation that only here. Sebastian's son, Mr. Lawrence, said quietly, "I don't have long to stay. The only thing is that I want to leave with the hope that you will be happy." "Dad, but his happiness can't be bought with money." The man stroked his father's gray hair. "God willing, I'll meet my woman. You could fulfill my last request." The father looked at Sebastian. "Please take a closer look at Michael's daughter. Arnaud was not only a friend to me, but you could say a brother. Even if only for a short time, but he was happy if this woman was able to inspire him to love her for the rest of his life. Maybe her daughter had the same power. I don't require you to say you'll marry her, but promise me you'll try to be more friendly with her." "Dad, it's been so long since we've seen each other." Upset, Sebastian said. "Besides, I've never had any friendly feelings for her." "Son, you've grown up, so things can change." His father sighed and fell silent. He found it difficult to speak. Mr. Laurent was seriously ill. The doctors gave him several weeks to live. He had been one of the largest winemakers in the Languedoc. But after the unification of the lands, their region became part of Spain. Monsieur was a hereditary winemaker. The history of their winery was already several hundred years old and had been passed down from father to son. Just as young Philip knew from the moment he was born that he would one day be the head of his father's winery, he met his friend Michael by chance. The guy was from a simple family and at the time was a market trader. He was from a village about 20 kilometers from Toulouse. As a young man, Philip was not distinguished by any particular politeness. Because of his father's condition, he was a bit arrogant. At the market, a fight broke out, and Michael saved young Philip from the local hooligans. From then on, they became friends. Over time, Michael earned some money and bought himself a vineyard. His goal was to produce very rare elite wines. As the years passed, his little winemaking business started to make a good profit. Perhaps Michael would still be alive today if it wasn't for his crazy love. After the girl who became the love of his life died, the man began to slowly fade away. 5 years ago, Michael was buried. Philip had been suffering from a rare disease all his life, which finally took its toll at the age of 65. "All right, father. I'll try," said the son, wiping away his tears. "If she says yes, I'll marry her." 3 days later, Mr. Laurent died. The funeral ceremony was scheduled for Saturday. The winemaker was a man famous not only in his region, but also in other lands of France. Therefore, Sebastian expected that there would be many people at the funeral. Daniel dialed the number of Monsieur Arnault's son. The father had died. "The farewell ceremony will take place on Saturday. I would very much like to see both you and your sister." "Sebastian, accept my condolences," heard the man on the phone. "Mr. Laurent was a very good man. He loved our father so much. I will definitely be there. But unfortunately, my sister has left France. She won't be back for 2 weeks." "Oh well, that's good," said the man Daniel sadly after the ceremony. "I would like to talk to you. It's very important." "Of course, Sebastian, I'll stay. "Don't worry," replied Mr. Arnaud's son. Not to say that Daniel and Sebastian were friends, but after the man agreed to fulfill his father's request, he needed to deal with Daniel. He was an unreliable man. You could call him a rogue. Daniel was Michael's son by his first wife, and he grew up a worthless boy. His mother had spoiled him so much that after her death, Monsieur Arnaud had failed to instill in his son any dignity, honor, or respect for other people. One could not call Daniel evil. He was a kind guy at heart, but he never took responsibility for his life. He was already over 40, and he hung on his father's neck until his father's death. He left the institute in the 3rd year of study girls, changed like gloves, and by this time never married. In general, Daniel could be called a shovel pass. After the death of his father, he started vineyards in 3 years, squandered all that his father left him, and was now in active search. Who would he find to sponsor him to restore his father's winemaking? Sebastian realized that it was not a good idea to count on Daniel as an unreliable partner. But his father had asked him and his sister to help him bring their father's creation back to life. After the farewell dinner, Sebastian asked Daniel to come into his office. "Daniel, you know how much my father loved your father." Their friendship was enviable. The man began. "Before he died, he asked me to get to know your sister. And if we could make it work, I could finance the restoration of your vineyards and the launch of your wines." Uncle Michael, did Daniel's eyes light up with joy. "If that's true, that's fantastic news. I agree. But it's not a fact that your sister will also agree." The master of the house looked at him carefully. "I don't know if she and I will be able to find common ground." "You'll do well out of happiness," laughed Daniel. "She's a good girl. Not like me. Marusha, as you know, has graduated from the institute, and now she is doing her mini round-the-world trip before starting work. She'll be back soon, and we can discuss all this together." Daniel was flying home. If Sebastian succeeds with his sister, he will have unprecedented opportunities. Then he could become rich. With Laurent, he could make a lot more money than his father did. Monsieur Arnaud never wanted to depend on his friend, despite his many entreaties to help him. Michael refused Philip's help. Everything he had achieved he had done solely by his own efforts. But Daniel had no principles. Maybe only one makes it a point to get everything for free. "Marusha, I'll take over," he rejoiced. "Screw her Patrick to hell. They'll never have a wedding. I've taken care of that." The man returned home and began to think over his plan of action. "Hi, Marusha." He dialed his sister's number. "I have some bad news for you. Philip's uncle died. We buried him today. Was Sebastian so upset that you didn't attend the funeral?" "Oh, I'm sorry," the girl said. "I'll call him today. Marusha, do you need to come back right away?" Carefully, he began. "Sebastian would personally like to meet with you." "What does he need?" She was surprised. Something else has come up with him. "He was asking about you." Julius Daniel remembered how we were friends as children. "Yeah, the way Sebastian and I were always being set up. It's hard to forget," Marusha replied sadly. "Well, why remember bad things? My brother came to his senses. I think he loved you as a child." "Daniel, are you making up something stupid again?" "Spit it out." She got mad. "I know you're gonna get it this time. Patrick's gonna catch you and give you a good hard time." "Yeah, I don't care about Patrick." Daniel swore. "Where did you find him?" "Don't forget that I'm getting married to him in a month. So you'll be related soon." The girl laughed. "Marusha, that's why I'm calling." The man said sternly, "We need to have a serious talk." "Daniel, what's the matter?" "If you keep fraying my nerves, I'll hang up the phone." Sister Marusha was angry. "Do you understand what this is about?" My brother was trying to find the words. "You can't marry Patrick because Sebastian loves you." "You're crazy in your anger," screamed the sister. "I love Patrick, and I don't want anyone but him. I'm not going back to France until the wedding." And she hung up. Marusha. Shit, I swore, brother. "Well, we'll see about that." Daniel rushed to pack his things. He looked in his wallet, scratched his head, but decided to go for it. One ticket to New York, he held out to the cashier for the money back with an open date. "You're welcome. In about 3.5 hours, the plane will land." "Marusha, don't hang up. I'm in New York and I think I'm lost. Daniel called his sister. Why did you come here? She screamed. Don't even think about me. Married to Patrick to talk me out of it. But wait, where are you mine? Come here. I don't know where I'm going. My brother shouted in anger. Do you want me to get eaten by bears here? Danielle, there are no bears in New York, laughed the sister. Besides causing trouble, there's something else to do. Can you? She was mad. Stay at the airport. I'll pick you up in a couple hours. Don't go outside or you'll lose everything. I don't understand a word they're saying here, the man said in horror. What do you think? I speak, said the sister reproachfully. Didn't you forbid me to teach at school? You told my father that it was a betrayal and that Napoleon would not forgive us. That's why I know nothing else but hello, goodbye, and thank you. Stay there, don't go anywhere. Jesus, what kind of a brother is that? It's just punishment. Despite the big age difference, which was almost 20 years, Daniel's behavior and thoughts were still those of a small child. When Marusha came to their house, he was very jealous of her. The girl was growing up calm. There were no special problems with her. Her father loved her madly. Maybe that's why Daniel's heart was constantly grinding Allah on his heart. Though he never showed it. It always seemed to him that after his mother's death, Mr. Arnault had given all his love to his daughter. But that wasn't really the case. Michael put so much effort into his son, but having a rebellious character, he broke and destroyed everything. Over time, Marusha grew up, and the man realized that there was no evil in her. Despite the worthlessness of her brother, she still loved him. But Danielle, welcome to New York. The man heard someone laughing behind him. The bears haven't come to see you yet. Go ahead, laugh, the brother said angrily. Of course, this is not my homeland, but yours. Come on, let's go. The girl smiled. The cab is waiting for us near the airport. How do you talk to them? In surprise, Daniel asked her. Unlike you, I learned a foreign language at school and institute. Some people here speak it, or at least understand what I say to them, she replied. Brother and sister arrived at the hotel. Marusha booked a room for him, because she knew perfectly well that he had no money. Are you here for a long time, or for one day to grind my nerves? Marusha looked at his sister with a sneer. It's about our future. He began. You must realize that this is all very serious. First of all, not about ours, but yours. She looked at him angrily. And secondly, I'm already looking forward to a good old age. Patrick was offered a job in a large American company. After the wedding, we're going to the United States. No, you can't leave me, Daniel resented. Marusha, do you want to leave me alone? Danielle, you'll be 45 soon. It's time for you to take care of yourself. She gave him a stern look. Marusha, but Sebastian loves you. He told me so himself. The man wouldn't stop. After the wedding, we'll merge our wineries. Can you imagine how rich we'll be? We're partners. Laurent, Danielle, that's not going to happen. Get down from heaven to earth, the girl replied. In exactly 30 days, I'm going to marry Patrick. I will not discuss this matter with you again. My God, I've had a week off from you, and now you found me. But Daniel never gave up hope of convincing his sister. They spent 3 days walking around New York. Marusha, why did you bring me here? His brother hissed at her. Now I will not be able to sleep for a month. But you asked for it. She laughed. What's wrong with you again? You didn't tell me he'd be unmasked. He was angry. Everybody has a post-mortem mask. Look, somebody must have stolen it from him. Aha, sister smiled. Bears from the street came in and took it away. Marusha, am I serious? My brother said angrily. You can see his face. I got scared. Daniel, he that, according to you, should be like an Egyptian mummy. Marusha tried to calm her brother. He was put there like that, and he's been lying there ever since. Marusha tried to show Daniel the places she had already been to so that she could tell him about them. Are they covered in gold? Daniel opened his mouth. Daniel, stop it. Marusha got angry. First of all, it's hardly gold. Secondly, if they are, they're being watched. If we could take one of them to France with us. You wouldn't have to marry Sebastian then, he sighed. I'm not going to marry him anyway. Don't get your hopes up. The girl answered quickly and walked forward. Marusha, wait. Her brother begged her, "But don't be so selfish. Don't think only of yourself. Remember that you have an older brother." That's right, an older brother. That word doesn't mean anything to you. Angry girl. Danielle, I think tomorrow we'll go home, and I'll personally explain with Sebastian you did a very good job. So my vacation is completely ruined. I'm all for it, rejoiced the man. Yay, tomorrow we fly home. Marusha, unfortunately, you don't have money for return tickets. Would you like to borrow it from me? His sister looked at him questioningly. I didn't even expect anything else from you. Daniel kept looking for different approaches to his sister, so that she would at least agree to meet Sebastian. But Marusha agreed to do so only on one condition, that she would tell him everything and invite him to their wedding with Patrick. And where the hell did she find Patrick? The man muttered to himself as they boarded the plane. He's ruined my whole life. I hate him. He'll never be my son-in-law. Danielle, can you be quiet? Please let us fly home in peace, his sister Marusha asked him. Why am I going to sit here? The man asked his sister in amazement. But Daniel, first of all, you don't have money even for economy class. Secondly, I don't want to listen to your nonsense all the way. You don't have to pay me back for the ticket. Angrily replied Marusha and went to the business class. Marusha, this is unfair, shouted he. I also have the right to fly business class. The girl did not answer him anything. She made herself comfortable in her seat, put earplugs in her ears and closed her eyes. That's better, she smiled. Not only did he ruin my vacation, but I had to put up with him on the plane. But no, 5 minutes later, the plane took off. Daniel thought hard about how he and Marusi could go to Sebastian's house right after the flight. He needed to find a good excuse. Yes, his sister was willing to go Clara, but he needed her to keep quiet about the wedding. And she couldn't do that. Her brother knew her very well. The girl would tell Sebastian everything at once. The man closed his eyes. You're all right. Maybe I should get you some water, a voice said in a foreign language. Daniel opened his eyes abruptly. A stewardess was standing beside them. She was talking to Daniel's roommate, who was dizzy. The man quickly looked at the girl and closed his eyes again. But then he felt like he'd been electrocuted. He jumped up in his chair, Olia. Yes, he said in amazement, looking at the flight attendants. Are you feeling ill? The girl turned to him. Are you also dizzy? I'm not. Oh, okay. Daniel tried to remember the words. He tried to read the namtag on the flight attendant's chest. God, I must be going crazy, Daniel thought to himself. I want Marusha to marry Sebastian too much. What if? Daniel's eyes lit up. He finally had a real plan. I told Jenna he was trying to say something. Flight attendant, I have a problem. I'm listening to you. The girl smiled. How can I help you? Individual problems? Daniel's head boiled. French, anyone? The flight attendant stood for a while and saying she'd be back in a minute went out. There's a Frenchman there who wants something from me, but I don't understand. She turned to a senior flight attendant. Help me, please. He doesn't speak English. There were no other Frenchmen on board in economy class. So Cindy approached the passenger. Bonjour, monsieur, she said in French. What can we do for you? Please tell this girl that I really need her help. Daniel spoke quickly. No, there is nothing illegal about it. We are holding a meeting with a wealthy man. We do charity work, helping the homeless and seriously ill children. Our representative has fallen ill, and we absolutely need his presence. Could you please replace her? You don't have to do anything, you just have to be present. I'm asking you very much for the health of the poor children. Help. It will only take 2 or 3 days. I'll pay for everything. He wants me to replace some woman. Jenna asked in amazement. I don't know anything about this business. Jenna, he said you don't have to do anything, answered Cindy. Besides, we have 3 days off and rest and make money. Don't be afraid. There is no such fraud here as in ours. The girl was so amazed she didn't know what to say. Jenna had been flying on international flights for more than 2.5 years, but this was the first time she had encountered such a thing. The man looked at her like this. Begging look that she couldn't stand. I will be waiting for you after the flight, and we will go straight to this monsieur. Joyfully shook hands with flight attendant Danielle. The plane landed at the airport not far from the halo. Passengers began to slowly exit. Jenna suddenly noticed in business class some girl. I was taken aback. She thought they looked exactly alike. "Jenna, come here." Cindy called out to her. The girl didn't want to lose sight of the stranger, but she had to go. Jenna returned after about 5 minutes, but she was gone. "Who is this girl?" Shocked, she asked. "We look so much alike to her." She searched with her eyes some more, but remembered that there was a man waiting for her and quickly went to gather her things. "Frost, you go home by yourself." Suddenly my brother said, "I have to go to a place. Daniel has something else in mind." She said in astonishment, "For another 3.5 hours you didn't let me go. And now what happened?" "Nothing. I just had some business to take care of." He looked at his sister sternly. "I'll tell you all about it later." "All right," Mauricia replied and left the airport. About 30 minutes later, the man saw a familiar stewardess. "Excuse me, could you change your uniform?" He tried to explain something to her in a broken foreign language. Jenna understood him. She disappeared for 10 minutes and came out in a beautiful blue dress. She had long, loose hair and open-toed gold sandals. "Great?" smiled Daniel, waiting. He dialed someone's number and talked very emotionally for a few minutes. After a while, a dark green Renault Nicholas friend stopped near them. "How good to see you." Shook hands with a tanned, curly-haired man. "I'll explain everything to you later." "You're welcome. I really need your help. Don't ask me anything yet. Just translate to this girl everything I tell you." The girl and Daniel got into the car. They needed to get to them first, and from there it wasn't far to Sebastian's house. "Jenna, you will forgive me again," translated Nicholas, "but your presence is very important. Remember, your name is Marusha. You are half French, half Russian. You see, Sebastian is a businessman and a big man we're on our way to see. He wanted to make a contract with us, so to speak, on cooperation. We are an old winery. We have been doing charity work for many years, so this contract is very important to us. I'm sorry, but we had to lie to our host a little bit and tell him that Marusha has French roots. I think you understand why. Marusha herself is sick now, and she has a wedding in 3 weeks, so it's all one thing. You don't need to talk business with Sebastian. Just talk to him about your travels, books, music. He speaks a foreign language well. Just tell him you have to pass a foreign language now to work abroad. Is that why you don't use French?" Jenna didn't understand what was going on, but for some reason nodded her head in agreement. "Don't worry, you'll be fine," Danielle encouraged her. "So get ready. We're pulling up. Oh, I forgot to tell you. He'll probably talk to you like you've known him for a long time. Don't worry about it. You've just talked to him a lot on the phone. He's never seen you in person." The car pulled up in front of a large, beautiful house. Jenna looked at it in surprise. "Hello, Daniel." To be honest, it was Sebastian who greeted him so unexpectedly. "Hello, Monsieur, Madame. Well, come in." "Sebastian, you only speak to Marusha in a foreign language. She has some kind of obsession. She has to pass an exam. So now she doesn't speak a word of French. I'm sorry you weren't at my father's funeral." The landlord looked at the girl. "Oh, sorry, shocked," said Jenna and looked at Daniel. He shook his head approvingly. "My condolences to Marusha. Traveling has done you good. You look very good," Sebastian complimented her. "I think we should have something to drink. Let's have something from the old collection." The host brought in a bottle of wine and poured it by the glass. "Oh, bonus of pleasure," Danielle sang. "It's divine." Jenna was getting very nervous and did a couple of gladkas. It made her feel a little better. The girl in general very rarely presented alcohol on rare occasions. Wine was the only thing that didn't resonate with her in France. The men were talking about something. They were speaking in French. Jenna stood back and enjoyed the stunning scenery. "How did you miss France?" She heard Sebastian's voice behind her. "Yes, I love it very much," she answered. "I have been to many places, but the south of France is where I would like to stay forever." The man looked at her in amazement as far back as he could remember. Marusha had never wanted to stay in France. The girl had always raved about America. "Have you changed much, Marusha?" Sebastian looked at her. "I never thought I could hear you say that. I wish I could get on my bicycle and ride down that road." The girl laughed, pointing with her hand. Sebastian smiled lightly. Do you have any other clothes with you? Jenna nodded and ran to change. 5 minutes later, she was already standing in her sweatpants and t-shirt. Frost, I'm sorry, I wasn't prepared for the fact that we would be riding bikes. That's why I only have mine, and Dad, you'll be fine on mine. The man looked at her cheerfully, and then he winked, and she quickly threw her leg over and raced forward. Are you serious? I scratched my head in bewilderment. Daniel, do you really want to ride bicycles? No one answered him because both Jenna and Sebastian were already far away. What are you doing in New York? Muscle pumping, out of breath? The man asked the girl. You're so full of it. Yes, I need to always be in shape. The girl laughed. That's why I'm always doing sports. Marusha, you just amaze me, surprised Sebastian. I didn't even know you were like that. Jenna laughed and pulled ahead. She drove up a small hill and stopped. Look how beautiful it is here. Sebastian didn't take his eyes off the girl for a second. It seemed to him that his dream was standing in front of him. Maybe his father was right, he thought. Maybe women have something in their blood. What makes a man happy? Jenna and her host were so immersed in their journey that they simply forgot that Daniel Marusi was waiting for them at home. I wouldn't mind if you stayed with me for a few days. The man looked at the girl. I think Daniel would agree too. Sebastian, I don't even know, let's ask him, answered Jenna and lowered her eyes. When did they come back? Daniel nervously paced back and forth. He saw the happy faces and his heart warmed. Danielle, why don't you stay at my place for a few days? Suggested the host. Oh, Sebastian. Thank you for the offer, he replied cheerfully. But I probably won't be able to make it. I have to go home on business today. Jenna looked at him in shock. Panic overcame her, and she began to shake. She was about to give up and tell him everything when Daniel came up to her. I'll be back tomorrow morning. Don't be afraid, he said in a broken foreign language. It's the right thing to do. He got into the car with Nicholas, and they drove off. Sebastian suggested that the girl have dinner and take a car ride. How beautiful it is here. Jenna rejoiced. Sebastian, I envy you so much. You live in such a beautiful place. Marusha, yes. Your house is 5 kilometers away from me, laughed the man. You have exactly the same beauty there. Yes, but the girl was embarrassed. I just adore Tanya. They admired the local scenery together and watched the sunset as if mesmerized. Sebastian felt happy for the first time in years. It was as if he was 20 years old again when he fell in love for the first time in his life. But unfortunately, Laura had chosen another classmate over him. He languished from his unrequited love for a few years, and then everything was forgotten by himself when Sebastian was 27. He wanted to get married, but at the very last moment he changed his mind. The thing was that the guy was disappointed in love and thought that he could never fall in love again. Then the idea came to him to marry a girl from a very rich family, to join their joint business endeavors, so to speak. Before the wedding, Dad told his father, I can't do this. I want to meet the one and only. Sebastian, not everyone is as lucky in life as Arnav sighed to his father. Your mother lived with me for 5 years and then went to America for a better life. No matter how many times I tried, I never found the right one. Yes, Mr. Arnaud, even if for a short time, but he was still happy, replied the son. I wish I could fall in love like that, so that every cell in my body would tremble for her. But the years went by. Sebastian never met a girl like her. He turned 35 this year, and the loneliness of loneliness was slowly beginning to eat away at him. Marusha, let's listen to something, Sebastian suggested when they got home. How do you feel about the classics? Very well. I just love it, the girl replied. She sat down on the sofa and closed her eyes. They were both almost out of breath. The music went on, taking them far away. This is the best France I've ever had in my life, Jenna thought. I've never been so happy anywhere. I feel like it's always been in this house, thought man. I feel like we are like husband and wife. The next day they woke up early. Sebastian suggested she go to the sea. Come on, come here, don't be afraid, shouted Jenna to the man. The water is normal. Marusha, probably all Russians are not afraid of the cold, he shouted, entering the water. God, how cold are you cold to plunge right away? She laughed. At first it will be cold, and then you will be thrown into a fever. Sebastian finally entered the water with a shout. It was the end of May, and the water was 16 degrees Celsius. And for the French, it was not yet the season. How do you get on like a dolphin? Sebastian marveled. Have you been swimming? Aha. The girl laughed. I even swam in the Norwegian Sea. You know how cold it is. The more time the man spent with the bones, the more he marveled. Marusha turned out to be absolutely not what he imagined her to be. It even seemed to him that someone else was next to him, not her. But the girl's appearance assured him otherwise. At lunchtime, Daniel arrived at Sebastian's house. He brought some papers. Marusha's brother was talking nonstop, but Sebastian wasn't listening. He watched as Jenna strolled through the garden. The girl was smelling the flowers, hugging the trunks of the trees. She was smiling the whole time, and it was obvious she was enjoying herself. I think we'll both benefit from this deal. Sebastian brought his voice back to Daniel's. So what, do you agree? I see Marusha has made a good impression on you. Yes, she's beautiful. He took a deep breath. All right, leave it at that. I need to look into it and think about it. Yes, all right, I'll come and see you tomorrow. The man said calmly. Don't forget that Marusha has to fly out tomorrow night. She can't miss her exam. After lunch, the girl asked Sebastian to show her vineyards and the winery. Sebastian, this is just amazing. Like a child, Jenna, God. You're a true master. You have everything so well organized at work. Clean and people. I see they get a break every now and then, and that's the most important thing. I didn't think you cared about the lives of ordinary people. He was surprised. To me, honestly, you seemed like a winded girl. The man laughed. You know, if I hadn't been through a lot myself, you'd probably be right. But unfortunately, or otherwise, I've seen some things too. Sebastian looked at her with the eyes of a man in love, and before he knew it, he had fallen head over heels in love with her. God, she makes my every cell tingle. He thought in the evening when he went to bed, what will happen to me now that she's gone? The next day, Sebastian wanted to take his guest to the airport, but Daniel would not agree to it. Sebastian, thank you for everything. Jenna shook the man's hand. These were the happiest days of my life. Marusha. Something wanted to say. Sebastian stopped. See you later, he said shortly. Daniel drove Jenna to the airport, thanked her for everything and handed her the money. Thank you, but I'm not taking the money, she said briefly, grabbed her bag and walked toward the airport. Mercy, she heard behind her back and turned around. Daniel sent her an air kiss and waved. Jenna took a long time to recover. It had been more than 2 weeks since the incident and Sebastian was still on her mind. She wanted to get his number and call him, but she didn't dare. And besides, Daniel asked her to stay out of his life. Jenna promised him that. Sophia, I'm in tears, she told her friend. I think I'm in love. Jenna, but that's good. Her friend was happy for her. You finally found happiness. But we can't be together, she sobbed. He's French. He lives in the south of France. So what? What's that got to do with it? Her friend scolded her. He loves you. I don't know, replied the girl. It's all so strange. I'm in such a mess. Jenna told her friend about everything. Sophia asked her a lot of questions. Jenna, he fell in love with you. It's obvious to a fool. You should get his phone number and talk to him. Maybe he's looking for you right now. Is he going crazy? A scoop, if he's not. The girl cried. If he tells me that he doesn't need me, I don't know how I'll stand it all. And I still have to work almost 5 months on the contract. I wouldn't be mentally able to work after that. Oh, friend, I don't even know, Sophia sighed. Then just hope and wait. 2 weeks passed after Marusha left Sebastian's house. The man realized that he couldn't live without her anymore. He decided not to call Daniel for the time being, but just to stop by. Sebastian, hi, come on in. The girl looked at him in surprise. How are you? I'm sorry. I couldn't make it to your father's funeral. Please accept my condolences. The man looked at her in surprise. Marusha didn't answer him. There was a question in her eyes. Marusha, during those days that we spent together at my house, I realized that you are my destiny, finally said the man. The girl was shocked. She looked at him. She couldn't utter a word. Sebastian, I haven't been to your place, she said, startled. Did you mess something up? Marusha. If you don't like me, please don't play offended, he replied. Just say so. Sebastian, I don't understand anything. Puzzled, she replied. What's even going on? But you were at my place after New York with Daniel, weren't you? He looked her straight in the eye. We spent 3 unforgettable days together. We rode bikes, swam in the sea. I was with Daniel at your place, not understandably asked Marusha. Yes, he left me at the airport and went somewhere else. I didn't see him for almost a week after that. We signed a contract with him the day after you left for America. You left for a week to take your exams. I couldn't understand the thing. A man. What did that idiot think up again? Marusha shouted in rage. Well, I'll show you now, she said, grabbing her cell phone. Daniel, come home quickly, she screamed. Yes, something happened on the spot. I'll explain everything. Marusha, what's this all about? Sebastian clutched his head. It was all a setup. But how? It was definitely you. We're about to find out. She was angry. Sebastian, I'm sorry. I have nothing against you. But Patrick and I are getting married in 10 days. Over 2 weeks ago, my brother flew to New York to see me and got on my nerves. He said you were in love with me and wanted to marry me. And in exchange for that, you'd be willing to sign some contract to merge our companies. Naturally, I didn't agree. But then who was that girl? In shock, he said. Marusha, I swear you are like 2 drops of water like each other. What's this all about? That damned Daniel, shouted Marusha in anger. How much trouble is he always causing? Daniel's car appeared behind the palace. Marusha and Sebastian ran out to meet him. It had been 2 months and Jenna still couldn't recover. She was flying in again today and the memories of Sebastian came over her with renewed vigor. Boarding was announced and the passengers showed up on the ramp. Jenna, hello. She heard someone's voice with a strong accent. The girl turned around. Sebastian stood in front of her. She jumped on his neck with happiness. Please forgive me for lying to you, she spoke quickly. You too, forgive me. He hugged the girl. Danielle made such a puzzle for us that I haven't put all the pieces together yet. I couldn't meet you sooner. I have more news for you than I can tell you in a few minutes. Let's talk after we've landed. The girl nodded happily and continued to take on board passengers. The whole flight, Jenna and Sebastian looked at each other every now and then and smiled contentedly. They both had something to tell each other, and they waited for the right moment. Finally, the plane landed and the last passenger got out of the cabin. Sebastian was waiting for the girl outside the airport in about an hour. Jenna Happy ran towards him. Sebastian, I've been waiting for you so much, the girl said as they drove to his house. I was just going crazy when you left. He looked at her with loving eyes. Finally, they made it. Sebastian poured himself a glass of wine. He calmed down a bit and started to talk to Jenna. He said, let's start with the fact that you have French roots. Your father was French. Unfortunately, he didn't live to see this happy time. Mr. Arnaud was a very good man. I knew him personally. He was my father's best friend. It's unbelievable. Such coincidences. The man was worried. Anyway, when Uncle Michael was in his 40s, he had a 19-year-old son and a wife at home. Aunt Gabrielle was already gravely ill at the time. Your father was in the high-end wine business. He agreed to go to see it. And then, if it worked out, a high-end restaurant chain wanted to sign him to a contract. But during his trip, some unbelievable thing happened. Anyway, he was mixed up with some other Frenchmen and sent to Utah. An aeronautical engineer was supposed to fly there. They couldn't find an interpreter for about 5 days, and nobody understood what your father was saying. Then they took him every day to some factory, showed him the airplanes. There was a girl who worked at the factory. Her name was Maria. I don't know how you do it, but she was assigned to him to make his bed. She cleaned it, brought food to the room. It just so happened that within a week, they fell in love with each other. They started having an affair. Finally, they found out your father had nothing to do with aviation. So they sent him back to New York. He found an interpreter there, and he called your mother all the time. He stayed about a month. I think Uncle Michael knew that his wife was going to die anyway, so he wanted to take your mother to France after she died. But as it turned out, Maria was expecting Michelle's child. Mr. Arnaud buried his wife, and almost 7 months later, he began to gather the papers. Maria told him that the child should be born at the end of October. When he called her for the last time, he was no longer answered. Then he dropped everything. But at the hospital, he was told that Maria's labor was difficult and she died. Uncle Michael's grief was unbounded. He started to register the girl for himself, and no one would have known about the whole story if Daniel hadn't met you on the plane. I hired a real detective to unravel the whole thing. Well, Mr. Arnaud's doctors didn't tell Mr. Arnaud that Maria went into labor early because she had twins. One girl was born very weak, and the doctors were afraid to tell him about her because they thought he might report them to an international court and accuse them of negligence. The girl was very weak, and no one knew if she could survive. And you survived, Jenna. The girl looked at Sebastian in amazement. Tears were running down her cheeks. Jenna, do you have a sibling on your father's side? Hugged her Sebastian Daniel, your brother, and Marusha, whom your father named after your mother. Your sister. Okay, so Daniel used my resemblance to my sister in shock, she pronounced. He saw that we could easily be confused. Yes, the man replied. And even though Daniel played on our feelings, I'm very grateful to him for that. We can go to them, Jenna said suddenly. I think I'd already seen my sister on the airplane the day I'd met Daniel. There was a girl in business class who looked a lot like me. Yeah, that's what I was going to do. Sebastian approached her. But first, let me tell you something. Jenna, I love you. You will marry me. Yes, Sebastian. She burst into tears and threw herself around his neck. The man held her tightly in his arms and kissed her. Sebastian, Marusha and Patrick have arrived, joyfully cried out Jenna and slowly walked towards them. Hi, sis. Marusha hugged her. How are you doing? God, it's huge. Patrick, probably I'll be kicked out of the house. If I don't have 3 babies in the next few years. But I'm so scared. What if I have twins too? It's hereditary, and I told her I don't care if I have 5 babies at once. Patrick answered her. The young people were chatting with pleasure on the terrace of the big house. Maurice and Patrick arrived a few days ago on vacation. Soon Daniel was supposed to arrive as well. To be honest, I thought it would be worse with him. Sebastian smiled. But Daniel had changed a lot lately. Maybe he's in love with someone. Jenna asked. After all, it was time for him to go. Yeah, wait for it. Marusha laughed. Don't you know our brother? That's why he's late. He must be up to something again. Danielle, he's a real troublemaker. The men started talking business, and the sisters decided to separate from them. Jenna, I'm so worried about you. Jenna got a hug from her sister. I specifically told Patrick that we should come over now to see the babies. Marusha, I'll tell you the truth. I'm very tired, sighed the girl. In fact, it's very hard, but it's only a few days left. Here he is, look. Marusha laughed, pointing with her hand. It's been more than 2 hours since he promised to come. Daniel, hi. Hi, everybody. Daniel greeted everyone. How happy am I to see you all. You have no idea what an idea I had. Danielle, no. Everyone said it with one voice. Let's not have any of your ideas tonight. Oh my God. Jenna Sebastian forbade it. I think it started. Daniel, if it wasn't for you, everything would be fine. Marusha was mad at her brother. As soon as you crossed the threshold. Even Jenna started giving birth. What kind of punishment are you? Well, it's not my fault that the time has come, is it? Justified brother. What are you standing there for? Let's go. Sebastian brought the things he had prepared beforehand and quickly brought the car around. He put his wife in the back seat. Marusha, let's get him and Patrick to Daniel. The man shouted. I'm on my way. I won't wait for you. Sebastian quickly started the car and it drove out of sight. Marusha and her husband jumped in with Daniel and followed. Danielle was screaming at the top of her sister's voice when their car stalled halfway through. "Can't you do anything normal in your life?" "Marusha, don't yell." The brother was indignant. "It's not my fault that it stalled. If you had checked the gasoline in time." The girl looked at him angrily. "We would not be here now. By God, you're not French with your narcissism. But you couldn't look at the arrow in the morning." "I thought I'd had enough." Daniel was making excuses. "Yeah, plus I didn't know Jenna was going into labor today." "All right, let's calm down," Patrick suggested. "I think we should lock Daniel's car and call a cab. It'll definitely be faster that way." After almost 2 hours, they finally reached the maternity hospital. Sebastian immediately refused to attend the birth. He was pacing back and forth, nervous. "How is she out of breath?" Marusha asked. "She's already in labor." "I think so." Sebastian answered nervously. "I'm so worried. God, I wish everything would go well." "Everything will definitely be." The girl patted her son-in-law on the shoulder. "You're going to be a daddy soon." "You're lucky. You'll have a son and a daughter at once." All 4 of them sat in the waiting room. Finally, Sebastian called and told them that the delivery had been successful. "I told you that everything would be fine." Daniel rejoiced. "Now I'm an uncle. And you scolded me for almost a month because I substituted Marusha as a stewardess. How much good did I do for everyone?" "Daniel." Marusha came up to him and stroked his brother's head. "Despite all the many problems you bring us, I still love you."